Hey, it's that time of the week for a look at what's on the Morning Joe reading list. And with us now, of course, New York Times bestselling author Ryan Holiday. He hosts a top-ranked podcast, The Daily Stoic. It gets roughly 5 million downloads every month. He's also the owner, of course, of The Painted Porch, an independent bookstore in Texas, where Ryan regularly talks about reading recommendations with more than 1 million of his followers on social media. And Ryan, it's always great to have you here, especially for this topic. Your theme this week centers around Juneteenth, and let's start with a classic, Up From Slavery. Tell us about it.
Yeah, this is one of the great American memoirs that more people need to know about. Booker T. Washington is born into slavery in 1856. He's freed at the end of the Civil War. And then when he decides he wants to go to college, he walks 500 miles to apply for college, which he gets in by cleaning the room, the waiting room. He's sitting there for hours and hours waiting, and he decides to clean the room. That's what gets him into college. And then he goes on to found the Tuskegee Institute, which people may have heard of, improving the lives of millions of people over the subsequent years. This is a powerful memoir that more people need to read.
You know, Ryan, one of the things as we celebrate our 250th celebration and our anniversary as a nation, I've got to say, one historical figure who certainly gets a lot of notice, but nowhere near the amount he deserves for the influence that he's had, of course, is Frederick Douglass. He is one of the 2 or 3 most remarkable figures of the 19th century, and his second autobiography really is still a classic, and it actually shows a man who is intellectually, emotionally, spiritually still progressing to become the great leader that we all know him to be today.
Yeah, as Trump said, it's a guy we're recognizing more and more these days, when he is in fact, and was in fact, one of the most famous Americans in the world at the time of his life, more famous than Abraham Lincoln, a friend of Abraham Lincoln. I think deserves to be recognized as a second American founder, a person who understood what America was about in many ways better than some of the original founders. But in this book, you get not just that, you get, again, the powerful biography of a man who comes literally from nothing. He asserts that once you cannot be whipped, you are already half free. He fights his slave overseer, teaches himself to read, runs away, and then becomes, as you said, not just a great thinker, but one of our great writers, one of our great political activists. And this is a biography that should be assigned in every school, and every person should know who this man is.
Yeah, everyone. You know, there's also there are so many Civil War books, great Civil War books. We all have our favorites. One of mine is Eric Foner's The Fiery Trial, but you've picked out another classic, This Hallowed Ground by Bruce Catton. Tell us about it.
Yeah, as you know, every American man has to choose between whether they become obsessed with World War II or the Civil War. I'm a Civil War guy, and I think this is the best single-volume history of the Civil War. It is riveting. Bruce Catton is an incredible writer. It reads like fiction. If you want to start somewhere with the Civil War, you can't get better than this. And then, because it is Juneteenth, if you just want to read about the final year of the Civil War, his book, A Stillness at Appomattox, takes us through the last 12 months of the Civil War, and is also, equally incredible.
Another book you have recommended is Clint Smith's How the Word is Passed, and it really examines the institution of slavery and the lasting imprint that slavery has had on American history. Tell us about it.
Yeah, in a way, this is a road trip book, and it's a road trip book through the real American history, not the nostalgia, not the revisionist history, not the lost cause history, but the real history of America. He does visit Galveston, where they announced Juneteenth famously, as well as Monticello and the Whitney plantation and the Angola prison. And you see in the history of these places, the real history of America. This is an incredibly moving book. It's worthy of all the praise that it gets. It's a reckoning with the real history of America and our actual past, which allows us, I think, to build a better future.
Yeah, you've selected another classic, The Warmth of Other Signs, that looks at the great migration of 6 million black Americans who fled the South for the North and West from World War I to 1970. Tell us about The Warmth of Other Signs.
The New York Times asked me for my 10 best books of the 21st century so far. I said this one, and so did many other people. I think they put this book at number 2. It reads like a great Russian novel. It is a history of the Great Migration, people moving from all over the Deep South to Chicago, to New York, to Los Angeles, and not just the journey to where they ended up and how they remade those cities, but how they got there, right? How scary it was to drive from Alabama to Los Angeles in 1925. And in many cases that it was illegal to do so. This is just an incredible book, a look through all different types of lives. Isabel Wilkerson is an incredible writer, and yes, this is another one that everyone should read.
And your final selection talks about Abraham Lincoln, a man, you talk about we select World War II or the Civil War. I was more of a World War II kind of guy, but I decided one year to dive in and learn more about Abraham Lincoln, because obviously one of the 2 great presidents in American history. And I found in Lincoln just an extraordinary story, an extraordinary man. And I agree with Tolstoy, who says he may be the single greatest figure in history since Jesus Christ.
I think that's right. There's so many books about Lincoln that you can read. And what I like about this one is it's an ethical biography of Lincoln, right? So it's not so much when he was born and what his childhood was like, but it looks at the ethical choices, the moral choices that he has to make, which is ultimately what leadership is, making those impossible moral decisions. And Lincoln struggled with those. I think it's interesting, he's known as Honest Abe, but he was known as Honest Abe because he was a good lawyer. He gets his reputation before politics, and he brings that reputation to politics. A vexing position, to say the least. And so here we have Lincoln, under incredible pressure, under incredible strain, struggling with these momentous choices, and he does his best. And I think here we have a biography of what leadership is supposed to be like, and the ideal we're all supposed to aspire to.
This whole idea of Honest Abe, though, we just ending on this, I'd love to get your thought. It really doesn't fit Lincoln, because Lincoln was very careful, unlike Jefferson, not to write his thoughts down. He knew that from the time he got into the Illinois legislature, then in the early 1830s, a racist state, up until he was assassinated in April of 1865, he would spend 30 years balancing, going back and forth, doing things that people would be horrified by, and then appearing to be extraordinarily progressive on a race. Frederick Douglass talks about it, I think, most compellingly 20 years after Lincoln's death. But even the emancipation, I mean, it's interesting, and forgive me for telling this Lincoln story, but it just, for viewers that want to understand Lincoln, Abraham Lincoln wrote a letter to Horace Greeley and said, you know what? Okay, my goal is the Union, getting the Union back together. If that means it's a Union that is half free, half slave, that's fine with me. If it means it's all free, that's fine. I don't care. I only care about the Union. Now, most people would read that and be horrified that Abraham Lincoln could still say that in the middle of the Civil War. But the second he said it, his advisors all said, oh, my God. He's going to move forward with the Emancipation Proclamation, because they knew Lincoln always was playing the jury, and he was acting, I'm disinterested, Abe. I don't care. Yeah. This slavery thing, let those crazy people think. But he made his argument that we needed emancipation for military purposes, for practical purposes, and even when he was taking the moral high ground, he never showed that hand publicly, did he?
Yeah, we don't give Lincoln enough credit for his craftiness as a politician, for his craftiness as a communicator, for his ability to compromise, to bring the public around. You know, he was a genius, not just morally, but a genius in the actual job of bringing those morals into the world, which is ultimately what leadership is about. It's not having the right thoughts. It's about bringing those right thoughts into the world, right? Deeds, not just words. And Lincoln is both. And that's why he's such a towering figure.
All right, Ryan Holiday, as always, thank you so much. Have a blessed Juneteenth, and you can check out the Daily Stoic anywhere you get your podcasts. And please visit thepaintedporch.com for your books